Welcome back. It's your boy Fresh.
And I'm Mary, and we are a Co-ople of nerds. And today we are going to be telling you about my little adventures in Italy. But before we begin, don't forget to give us a like, a subscribe, and follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Oh, and don't forget to vote for us for YouTuber of the Month. Link in the description.
All right, so you went to Italy,
Yes.
Bologna for work,
Yes.
and I sent you a list of game stores.
So this game store, though, I kind of found on my own. So, we worked long days. It was for work. And we were working in Faenza, which is about 40 minutes south of Bologna.
Okay.
And Forlì is about another 15 to 20 minutes south of there.
Does that time include getting pulled out of a ditch?
That happened in Faenza. On the outskirts of Faenza. But yes.
Okay.
No, it was 20 minutes without the ditch issues.
Literally pulling us out. It's fine. It's fine. Yep. That's why it was pulling. And no.
But I did a little search, and there were a couple of game stores, they said, in Faenza, which was closer, which is nice because Faenza's a town where you can walk around, and it's very, it's like you imagine Italy in your, like the way they portray it in movies.
Okay.
You know, the brick roads and everything, all the older buildings, the very narrow streets. It's very beautiful. And but the only thing is that like most of them didn't have websites because Faenza is a relatively small town.
Okay.
And so I couldn't tell how good these places would be, and I knew that they had to be small. There aren't a lot of like large buildings in this part of Italy.
Okay.
So any little shop is going to be little. Even the restaurants are all typically very small.
Like 20 tables kind of thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and a lot of restaurants there are really like houses. It's like someone's house.
Okay. Kind of like Bub's Burgers. Where it's like an old converted house into a restaurant.
Yeah. It kind of feels like that.
All right. So how does it compare to game stores in Indiana?
So I found the Magic Store looking online, and they actually had a website, and I saw some pictures, and I was like, this looks probably like the closest I could find to something in the U.S.
Okay.
So it comparatively looked very similar. They had the Pops, they had the Pokemon display, like cards, and they actually had tables set up out front where people were playing Magic the Gathering.
Outside?
In the front of the store.
Oh, front of the store. Okay, good.
Not outside.
Yeah, you can't play Magic outside.
Well, the wind would blow the cards away. So, and then they had a corner with board games on the wall. And they actually had, for as small of a corner as it seemed, because all shops there are relatively small, but I thought this was a big shop compared to a lot of other places I'd seen. They actually had a really good selection of games. And so it was really hard to pick which one I wanted. And I went in there, and they greeted me. Ciao! They're so nice.
So everybody was nice.
Yeah.
Ciao.
So friendly. And I walk in and they're like, what can we help you with? And I'm like, well, I'm looking for a game that's Italian. I wanted to bring back something that I could only find in Italy. Even if it's just the Italian version of the game.
Okay. And you also, they were very impressed with a certain picture you had.
Yeah. So, we went there or I went there by myself, and I was talking to them, and I was a little embarrassed by all the questions I was asking, and they were so welcoming and accommodating. They were like, yeah, they were showing me all these different games and explaining them to me, but they kept talking to me kind of like. They were like, oh, well, maybe you'll like this party game, or you'll like this game. It's a little lighter. And I'm like, no, I have to explain to you. Me and my husband really like the bigger games, the more involved games. We don't want party games. And so then I started to explain, I'm like we go to the Dice Tower retreat, and we've met Tom Vassell before. And they're like, oh, Tom Vassell. And so I got out my phone and I showed them the picture that we had on Twitter of us with Tom Vassell at the Dice Tower retreat. And they just were like, oh, you met Tom Vassell. And I said, yeah, we live in Indianapolis where there's Gen Con. He's like, oh, I've always wanted to go to Gen Con, but it's a lot of money because it's a lot of money to have to travel from Italy.
Yeah.
All the way to Indianapolis. We take for granted the fact that we live here in Indianapolis and we can just stroll on over.
It's expensive for us, and we don't have to pay for a hotel or flight.
Right.
So,
and the flight from Europe, I'm sure, is
especially this time,
yeah.
Getting into Indy.
But so it was really cool to see. You hear about how the Dice Tower is global, right? Mm-hmm. But then when you actually experience it,
right? Yeah.
When you go somewhere and you're talking to people, and they're like, "Oh, Tom Vassell, I know the Dice Tower. I love watching the Dice Tower," and then it's kind of a different feel for you. Like, wow, this really is global. They're a big deal.
Yeah.
So yeah, I felt like a little celebrity because I'd met Tom Vassell.
Because you got a picture with Tom Vassell.
Yeah.
So, here is the bag. Magicstore.it is their website. You can check them out.
They are on Instagram. We're not on Instagram yet, but it's Magic Store Forli. Forli, Forli. An accent over the I. But we'll post a link to their Facebook page in the description. But they were, I thought, like, compared to what I felt like I could find other places, I felt like they were the best game store around.
Okay. So you picked us up a couple games for the collection. Let's see. And they threw in a bunch of trinkets, so we'll go over the trinkets.
Yep.
So, obviously this place is a magic store, so they gave a 0 to 99 life counter. So what you do with this is you just rotate it to whatever your life total is, and each time you gain life or take damage, you turn these little dials, and then your new life total will be there. So you start at 20, and if you get a lightning bolt in the face, now you're down to 17.
Well, I told them my husband played Magic the Gathering professionally, and they were like, "Oh, you should take this to him." And I was like, "Oh yeah, I'll buy that for him." They're like, "No, you can have it for free." And I was like, "Well, that was really sweet of them. They did not have to do that."
Oh yeah, so this is kind of cool. I mean, I believe this is the Lord of the Rings Magic the Gathering little flyer. Might be for a pre-release or maybe some sort
They
of
said
game
it would
day.
be global. They were like, I was like, well, I'm going back home because they were excited to tell me about this. I'm like, well, it should be local to you as well. If there's Magic the Gathering there, you should be able to find this there.
Okay.
So they were very excited about that.
Then they gave you a couple of. This is a Dragon Shield, maybe Dragon Mini Adventures. Collect the Dragon Shield Mini Adventures.
Yeah, so this is for Dungeons and Dragons.
So this Dragon Shield was the brand of sleeves I used to use when I played Magic. Some cards. They've got stats and stuff on them, so
Yeah, super cool.
you can include them in your D&D campaign. They've got little QR codes you can scan, and maybe... I didn't know Dragon Shield had a game, or, role-playing game type thing.
No, that wasn't part of it. About that separate.
So, the first game...
So this was the first big game that caught my attention.
Mm-hmm.
And
I'll let you pronounce it.
Papillion, right? I think it's Papillion.
Okay.
Papillon? Maybe it's Papillon. But I don't see an accent over the O, so it could be Papillon.
Yeah. So this box is in Italian,
Yes.
but they said that this game was...
It has an American flag on the back. So.
Yeah, so it looks like they do have... They'll probably have a couple different copies of the rule book. We've got games like that here where they'll have, a German version, an Italian version, an English version.
It looks so pretty.
It does look pretty. It looks like you are assembling butterfly gardens with these bushes. Unfortunately, just looking at the box, it's all in Italian, so...
Well, I did... I can't
see where
remember.
it says 2 to 4
yeah,
Guitari, so...
So I did use the that Translate app
Google
on my
Translator,
phone,
yeah.
where I took a picture of the back and it translated it to English for me, and I was able to read it. But
Okay.
I don't remember what I read. I remember I was very excited though about the game, and it looked like a really good game, something we would like. And then they showed me a million other games. They showed me some really cool games, and I almost ended up getting this one space game. And they also had some funny ones, some really fun ones. They had like drinking games and other party games that I thought would be, some of the party games are a really neat idea, but I kept trying to explain to them, like, well, we don't get to play party games that much because
Right.
it's just the two of us. So we try to stick with at least a 2-player game. And then one of the guys came up to me and he said, do you like Pandemic? And I'm like, Pandemic is my gateway game. I love Pandemic. That's what got me into gaming. And he said, oh, well then you might like this game.
So she goes to Italy and buys a game called Pandemic: The Fall of Rome. So a little suspicious there. She might want to take down Rome.
They were the one that showed it to me, but it plays like Pandemic, except you're playing the Romans trying to defeat the barbarians. Mm-hmm. Which I thought was because I love the whole game mechanic. It's
Right,
Z-Man Games, and I love the game mechanic of Pandemic.
The Pandemic system.
Yeah, and also it's a whole different take on it. Where
Right, yeah. No, I've seen these. I think they got this one. They've got a Cthulhu one. I mean, every game has a Cthulhu version, but I've always been curious how that translates from, gameplay wise, from treating diseases to stopping barbarians or defeating Cthulhu. So it'll be really interesting to try that one out. Now this one does not have...
It doesn't look like it's going to have English, so we may have to be using the phone
Right, so...
to translate for us. But I was so excited about it. I was like...
And Board Game Geek is the best companion website in the world. They'll have the English version of this rule, so we can go there, download them, print them off in PDF, and have it on hand. some of the cards we might have to, do the Google Translator, but I think we're familiar enough with it that we'll be all right.
Yeah. And that's something I had never seen before. Now, maybe it exists here and it's just in English, but I had never seen it before, so...
It's very thematic to get the fall of Rome in Italy.
I had a really good time in Italy working a lot, but it's the food. You go there for the food and the coffee.
Well,
coffee.
We have Fazoli's here in Indiana, which is real Italian,
Nothing.
Real fast.
Not even remotely the same.
Me and the kids went and got Fazoli's. We basically had the same dinner.
I didn't see marinara sauce the whole time I was there.
Well, you're missing out.
Lots of risotto. Oh, the best pizza I've ever had in my entire life.
It had an egg on it.
They had a hard-boiled egg, sliced up on the pizza, and of course then it's like a brick oven pizza. Oh, so good. The mozzarella cheese, fresh mozzarella cheese. You're just
hungry.
I am hungry. But there's something about mozzarella cheese there that it's different. It's just better. So much better.
Well, I've been to Fazoli's, so I feel like I'm right there with you. Well, let us know down in the comments section. If you've been to Italy, have you seen...
Yeah, and check out Magic Store for Lee if you're ever in Faenza.
Yeah, and they are on Facebook, Magic Store for Lee. And we'll see you next time.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye. Hey, Pumpkin.
Yeah.
So I understand you drove to this game store. Did anything adventurous happen along the way?
Not to the game store, no. Now, on the way to dinner afterwards, maybe. A little adventure.
A little adventure. We're all 4 tires on the ground at the same time. Was it on the right side?